But when it comes to the natural substances, everything that's found in nature, especially and arguably potentially only when it's consumed raw, would have a highly photoactive aspect to it, and it would be both photosensitive and have a high level of photo absorption. When you take them, there's certain intervals, whereas if you were eating curcumin and then you get in front of the light, 480, which you've got in that device, and we can demonstrate this, that helps to activate something like curcumin even better than the 600, which is red. So it's funny enough that blue helps to activate something that's quite red or orange.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jonathan Otto with me again this month. Now, he'd sent me one of these so I could test it myself. In our last couple of interviews, we talked about the benefits of red light therapy. And since I've had a chance to use this for the last couple of weeks and others have been testing it with me and using it, I just wanted to go through live and get some response, see what you think, get Jonathan's answers to explain a few, I would say, unusual, magical things that have happened in terms of skin and that sort of thing, just to try to understand the mechanics and the workings behind it, how it really affects. So for one thing, and Jonathan, thank you for allowing me and giving me this beautiful device here.
Welcome.
Maybe I'll preface with a quick story. So before we put it on the stand, my sister was there with her brother-in-law, and they were super excited too because they'd use red light in some places that they go to get either massage or at the spa, the gym, this sort of thing. They had some red light therapy that they used before, and without it even on the stand, was able to twist it and have it stand up or get it at different angles depending on leaning it against something. It was very versatile, even laying it on the ground and standing over it, sitting in a chair right next to it. It was really stable. Like you might think this design here would fall over easily. Not the case. It was really incredibly stable standing up like that. And it was on carpet as well. So, kudos to that. Well designed. And it's really heavy and girthy. Like when you pick it up, you go, this thing's solidly built. Then on the back, all the fans that are there as well. Huge amount of fans for cooling. I can't really, it's on the stand, so I can't twist it around as much as I'd like to. But the heat dissipation is just wonderful as well. You don't actually feel the heat from the lights because they're hot. You feel it from the near infrared that's coming in and getting into your muscles or into the layers of the skin and the dermis there. The heat is always a thing because we do indoor growing with LED lights, and that's always a thing to try to exfil that heat out of there because it's always it'll get too hot, or in the wintertime it's good for free heating, but in the summer it's difficult to, and this is a really well designed piece of machinery to get that heat off of there. And you don't want to scorch plants too, and we do all kind of like high value nutraceuticals and these sort of herbs. I'm working with Ted Marchildren at Omega Garden, and they have LEDs running through a barrel in the center. And the same thing. It's always about trying to control the heat, and that is the biggest thing with LEDs. So this thing was amazing with the fans being able to pull all that out. So whoever your designer was or how you designed this, that was from another person who uses LED lights in different fashion. Well done on that. And my first thing to say, since I prefaced the story, working out on the farm, I had some ticks are voracious this year because we had a ton of rain. It's really like incredible amounts of rain out here. So I got a couple tick bites on me, and I had some mosquito bites on me. And I stood in front of this, did a couple sessions, and usually it would itch for days and days and days, and they just cleared right up. I'm telling you, after like the first day of the mosquito bites itching, because usually it itch for a couple of days, and you got to be careful not to scratch it too much, the itching was gone. And that for me was like really amazing. And then the tick bites too. And those things will itch and be red for weeks, plural, even if you get them out. Because here's an old timer trick for those of you who don't want to use pliers and like leave a pincer inside your skin. Get a little thimble. Now you can buy the plastic thimbles, fill it up with isopropyl rubbing alcohol, and then just put it over your tick. And eventually they'll start suffocating and they'll come on out, and the alcohol will actually clean that area where the ticks had gone into you. So your chances in reducing, infection are, just tremendous 100%, because generally even when you use tweezers and you try to pry them out, sometimes one of their mandibles will snap off under your skin, and ooh, you're going to look for that'll be infected for months, plural. So I've been bitten by these two ticks, and they did nothing with the Lyme. It just really left some big, welt, itchy, incredible itchy bites. That was gone after 2 sessions with it. I was like shocked because I'd had a bunch of tick bites in my life being around farms and thing, but really, can you explain that? I understand it might have something to do with the histamine or whatnot, or their allergic reaction in the skin, especially for mosquitoes and ticks. But there was something magnificent about. I was shocked. I was really absolutely floored by the itching stopped so quickly. I'll
Wow.
leave it there. That's my first live comment.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, firstly, awesome, and congrats on having something that helps you because shows like this for everyone watching, we're truth tellers, so we don't like make up stories because it goes against what we do. Like we're truth tellers. We don't stoop to that level to make up stories. And we don't have to. These are extraordinary things. And this is the first I'm hearing about it. You started telling me about it, David, and I told you to pause so I could have you tell me for the first time on air because I said I didn't want to have a fake reaction. And so that was awesome to hear that. So the mechanism that I would hypothesize is happening with this is that the itching is part of healing and pain is part of healing. And these are all part of the response, how the body is recruiting and to these particular areas with repair mechanisms. But some of the issues is that because there's a deficit, that some of that healing is stunted, prolongs, and then you're having exorbitant amounts of pain, or particularly pain, but then in this case even itchiness, because these symptoms that are related to healing. Skin is an organ, so it's interfacing with mitochondria, it's interfacing with, it's producing oxygen with the cell within the cells, and so it's countering the issue as if helping to reverse that it even happened in the first place. And so it's kind of like bypassing, and it's watching all these healing mechanisms happening. It's adding to them by supplying energy so the body can accelerate these healing processes. But then those symptoms are they're going down because the healing is happening. So there's no need for the itchiness if the healing is happening. If there's no need for the pain if the healing is happening. And people don't realize that pain is a sign that the body's recruiting to heal. And you see that with a salamander or an axolotl where the limb comes off, but then so there is going to be pain, but it's driving stem cells. It's actually switching cells into stem cells so that they can differentiate into whatever has been taken off. But these processes are all happening, and the more help that they have, the less pain you feel, the less symptoms you have, and the more effective the actual result is. And so anyway, that's really cool. Did you mention so you're using it, and you mentioned skin, but skin was for the itchiness, or was it like skin as in an anti-aging, or was there anything else that you noticed, or with you or your mom, or I think you said your sister?
Yeah, it was just, well, for me personally, with the insect bites, I just went and used skin. Now, the universal setting here is just overall for the full body. And again, I will say one thing with energy wise. So, you talk about frequency and vibration, and now we have light occurring within this here. Sometimes I would be tired and I would go stand in front of it for 10 to 15 minutes just on the universal setting instead of hitting a cup of coffee or something. And I tell you, like, wake right up again. It's quite amazing the energetics that it pushes into you. I know there's just overlapping of different waves that could be because light can be turned into sound, and sound has a frequency and a vibration that can be retranslated back into light, and magnetism as well fits in there. But the energetics of being able to start moving energy around the body, and I think it has something to do with blood circulation myself. But in terms of if I'm feeling sluggish and I'm like, oh, maybe I want to just go hit, like I say, a cup of so, instead of getting dehydrated by drinking coffee later in the afternoon, red light therapy. And again, myredlight.com, use the code ADAPT2030. And I just wanted to throw that in there, that the overall energetics of the body to go from a sluggish state to a more awake, a heightened state. Again, maybe you could explain how that works in the physiology.
Oh, that's awesome. And I'm really glad to hear that result. And I mean, this is coming from someone that's struggled with chronic fatigue since I was a child and really bad, which I believe to be due to things that happened to me as a child, part of a schedule. People can understand what I'm saying. And that damaged my mitochondria, that damaged my metabolism, that damaged, you know, lots of different functions and organs that then I'd have chronic nausea, I'd have chronic dehydration. I had to drink copious amounts of water, never hydrated because I had a lot of cellular dehydration. And that's really the key of understanding how this works because you get you have these issues with fatigue. I got balloons here. You have this issue with fatigue in connection to intracellular hydration and oxygenation of the body. And so, if you understand that, like, if you think about how long you can live without food, now think about how long you could live without water. Now think about how long you could live without oxygen. And so, clearly there's a hierarchy here, and the one that you would, of all things, want to live the least amount of time without, it would certainly be oxygen. And everything's important, but nothing is more important than oxygen. And oxygen is so responsible for healing, and it's so responsible for all our cellular functions that we have to do it so constantly. Like you don't have to eat like you have to breathe. You don't have to drink water like you have to breathe. And so if you can get oxygen into your cells, then you can get energy, cellular energy. And so, red light, because you wouldn't think about it like oxygen, you think about it like something else. It doesn't make sense. Like, how is that oxygen? But what happens is when it's electromagnetic waves that are stimulating the cells to produce their own forms of oxygen. But what if I could stimulate your body, your cells to generate their own types of oxygen that's various types of reactive oxygen species like singlet oxygen. Now your body's producing all these different forms of reactive oxygen and that's energy for the body, energy for the cells. And so naturally you would start feeling less sluggish and you would have a jolt of energy as if drank coffee or something like that, which is only blocking your receptors that make you feel tired. So you're not giving yourself energy, you're just blocking the feeling of being tired for a moment and then it comes back in full force. And so yeah, these are some of the reasons. And remember, just very in simple terms, I can answer it even more simply. Mitochondria have light receptors. They need light. They need that, and they respond to it more than anything else. Mitochondria are responsible for the energy of the cells. They account for around 25% of the organ cells. And when they get light, they generate ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is itself a fluorescent substance. So you're lighting yourself up with a fluorescent substance. You can visibly see. Near infrared, you can't see it, but it's still working in that realm, and it's certainly frequencies as we've been talking about. Now your cells generate a fluorescent substance, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Now that your cells have energy, they can drive all cellular function. And so the cellular functions that you take for granted are happening when the cells are getting what they need. Then all of a sudden you feel energy, you feel everything. But it's because you're also part of the reason for what's happening is you actually just cleared out a bunch of damaged cells that were still draining your energy, but they weren't able to undergo apoptosis, so that they're taking from the body, and somebody's walking around feeling sick, tired, and everything's wrong. And if I looked at your cells, I would find that they're senescent. They're actually just like you, like in a zombie state. They're alive, but they're showing signs of death. But they're in this twilight zone. But what light therapies do is that they actually destroy the senescent cells, which is so awesome. And they destroy senescent mitochondria. And so then you're clearing out the bad and giving way to all the good. And then in the absence of these, then your body is now producing new mitochondria, new stem cells. And so then you look and feel younger. And that's the systemic use. Like that's not going to happen in 10 minutes when you use it, but it's absolutely going to happen over the few weeks that you're using it. Your body's going to then be adapting. And so you'll get this compounding effect and you'll start feeling like a new person because you are a new person because you have new cells.
Yeah, they just came out with the newest close-up of a human cell ever recorded, and it's quite amazing. Just the working mechanisms within the cell. Here, I'll put it up on the screen so you can see it. But the actual creation of that cell and how many working parts, like billions of different pieces within that cell working to clear and guide and grow and export. And, it's just the cellular function of the body is something to behold. I mean, it just it's so mind-boggling how complex it truly is. Since you said that, I'm wondering if I could. Didn't even think about that until you just said it. What about fasting in the morning? Because you taught apoptosis, to be able to break that and try to, get some of those dead cells out by fasting in the morning. So
Mm.
I was just wondering, in terms of like first step, second step, how would that add into the effects of that by fasting in the morning and using the red light closer to the time where you're going to break that fast around noon for the first time or 11 a.m. for the first time, depending if you get up 5 or 6. How does that work in some sort of combination?
Yeah, no, it's awesome to start thinking about those combinations because the literature on intermittent fasting or restricted feeding, this is something that the exact time that you do it could be varied. Some people may need to eat earlier in the morning and it doesn't work for them to go without food that for that long. But with what everyone I believe holds in common is that to eat late is not good for anyone because you're having to digest that food while you're sleeping and you can only do one thing at once. You're either healing or you're digesting and you're doing one of those two things. And so healing happens in the absence of digesting. So if you ate at 9 o'clock at night and went to bed even at 11 or 12, then you're still having to digest that through the night. So the best thing to do is stop eating earlier. But in whatever case, which could be as early as 6 or even 3 or even like 5 or 4 o'clock. But if and then you could start eating earlier. But in whatever case, David, whether it was that side or the other side, or you stop at least stop eating at 7, as an example, on a regular basis, and then maybe you're in bed by 10, but at least you've got a lot less to digest or whatever. But then now you count the hours, and if you get to that 14 hour, even 12 hours is going to be getting there, 14 hours, 16 hours, then you're getting this intermittent fast, which everyone should be doing something like this. The only way you can't do that is if you're eating super late, eating super early, then you're really cutting that out. But then if you are getting all those stem cells naturally circulating, then you can irradiate those with light, help stimulate healing systemically, and see the amazing things happen.
Sounds like a good combo. There has to be other combinations like this that I personally am not thinking of, and that have been tried through history
Oh,
and found
yes.
that it works. Because a lot of things we're learning now are just something that was around in the past. So let me throw it like, so it's a kind of off base, but it still makes sense. Like compressed air energy technology was around during the Romans. Basically, you have a dome and you push it down with the water, and that air can't go anywhere, and it just gets more and more compressed. And they were spinning things back in, the Roman era, say 400 AD. And then suddenly we refound this compressed air energy technologies in the 1750s and started with it again. Was it really old, that knowledge? Was it brand new, that knowledge in the 1700s? No, it was just recycled. Again, metallurgy. I mean, they were stamping coins. Like I said before the interview, I was looking at some Mycenaean coins from 3,500 years ago where they were actually doing something very similar to what we were to today, but they were printing octopus on the front of it. Obviously, it's a coastal society at that time. But again, metallurgy and working metals. I mean, is it law? And then we lost the technology for quite some time, for 1,000 years, and then boom, and then it comes back up, and then we're minting again. Okay, like there's been these breakdowns of knowledge lost and knowledge refound again. So maybe I could ping your brain. Is there another combo that
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of, or other people out there might want to also think, like, how can we do these two things in tandem that would get like a far greater outcome, something that's been lost in history but then suddenly unveiled again, and like, oh, we're using the same
Mm.
thing again.
Absolutely. So here's an example. Timing would be one where, for starters, okay, so if you've got a red light device, most importantly, just get it out of the box and use it. When, anytime, just do it. It's going to have benefit whatever time you take it. Now, the studies that were done on eyesight, for example, where the scientists had the participants open their eyes for 3 minutes and then they tested their eyesight. And immediately it was a 17% improvement in eyesight on average. And that was if you were over 40. Under 40, there was a study that found up to 47% increase in eyesight in a short period of time. Not in a single day, but in a short period of time. But coming back to the over 40 study, that particular study found that if you did the light in the afternoon, there was no improvement. But if it was in the morning, you'd get the 17%. So now that helps you understand the circadian rhythm. And so our ancient ancestors or even recent ancestors would open their eyes and look at the sun gazing. And when there's only one time that can happen in mornings and evenings. And for the mornings, then they would naturally have the time and the sun and the light that would be all in one, so they naturally would get the right time because that's when it is. Well, now we have this advanced technology. We can do it from the comfort of our homes. We actually have the ability to get enhanced results on top of what the sun can deliver, which is kind of sounds crazy to say because normally you can't improve on nature. But in this case, what you're able to do is take the irradiance and take the same wavelengths that are coming out of the sun. You've got a pure source because you've got a consistent light source that doesn't flicker, and now you've got a much higher irradiance, and so it's much more powerful at performing its effect. But when it comes to the natural substances, everything that's found in nature, especially and arguably potentially only when it's consumed raw, would have a highly photoactive aspect to it, and it would be both photosensitive and have a high level of photo absorption. When you take them, there's certain intervals, whereas if you were eating curcumin and then you get in front of the light, 480, which you've got in that device, and we can demonstrate this, that helps to activate something like curcumin even better than the 600, which is red. So it's funny enough that blue helps to activate something that's quite red or orange, and you'll see that quite commonly and then there'll be blue, which is blue, is activated by red, which is like 660 and 670. So it's super cool to think about how these interesting things happen in nature. But then there's all these different activation points, and hence why that's part of the reason why we put 590, 480, 590, 630, 660, 670, because they are all activating different derivatives. St. John's wort, which is hypericin, and then you've got chlorophyll or derivatives like chlorin E6, but any form of chlorophyll or riboflavin or berberine, they're all going to have different activation points, but they're going to typically almost always fall right within those numbers, and those numbers exactly, and especially the combination of those numbers will all activate them. So the more plants that you're eating, the more raw plants you're eating, like, so that leafy green salad just becomes that much more valuable to you when you're doing light therapies and in proximity. Like, for example, if you're eating them, you're going to have them in your body all the time because it's a habitual thing that you just eat. So every time you get in front of the red light, it's going to be helping. But if you want to like particularly do it where you eat your meal and then you look, okay, in 2 hours, I'm going to be in front of the light, which is your perfect timing to help activate that. And so you might have just gone and eaten that meal, and a couple of hours ago, you'd be like, okay, now's the time. And you're going to go in front of your light even for 5 minutes. I just activated that. And so this is the way to think about food. Everything is photoreactive. If you took out light, you'd realize how much you're reliant on it. And so many people are like, think about it. We're ordering supplements, or we're ordering things at the groceries or going and shopping for groceries, and we're not even thinking about the fact that they arguably all need to be activated by light to reach their peak absorption. And people are taking things like curcumin and not activating them with light, and maybe they're getting 10% of the benefit because they're relying on maybe that accidental sunlight that they get instead of even intentionally getting the sunlight, which they ought to do also. So the power of photodynamic therapy is a big deal. Photodynamic therapy is when you're taking light activated substances, and you could do this either as preventative or as a treatment. You could either do it where it's broad spectrum, where you're taking a lot of things, or you're taking certain things that you've researched in studies.
Touch on a few points there. Like if you're going to work it back, even the plants that grow to get those supplements need light in the first place is the base thing that allows them to have life to provide those supplements coming back to you. But again, if
Well
you
said.
look back, like the worship of the sun, let's go back into history because I'm a fan of ancient history. Like everything revolved around sun worship, the sun gazing you're talking about, morning, maybe they did some sort of ceremonies in the morning. But again, that gazing of the light, totally discouraged in our societies now. Oh, you're going to get cataracts. Oh, it's going to do this. Oh, it's going to do that. Don't look at the sun. Bad for your eyes. Like how many hundreds of millions of people have they dissuaded from even gazing into the sun in the mornings until does it? I mean, your body's going to tell you it's too bright to look at it. Don't look at it anymore. But when you, especially where you're out on the ocean, when it's coming up or setting, I mean, you can really gaze into it deeply at a certain precise point where suddenly it's not too bright for you any longer. And I think that's where that point comes in. And it's saying that those words sanitarium, when you say that today, people think, oh, that's an insane asylum. See how they've worked, like reverse the lexicon, where everything that seemed to be beneficial for us is now reversed in itself. Because anybody you say at the sanatorium or sanitarium, they're going to suddenly think like really a psych ward or some kind of, a straight jacket facility, and that's how they've tweaked the language for us. Not
Mm.
an area where you go to rest your body, not an area that's supposed to reinvigorate the soul and the mind and the flesh suit, this body. That's what it originally was for. And the further you go back in history, the more that sun, quote unquote, light was the center of everything that was understood to be life giving. And again, it's the inverse now. We've completely, get out of the sun. Oh, you need to put, sunblock on. You can't have the sun striking your skin. Well, you should know your rhythms. Like for me, I'm not going out in the middle of a field to work at high noon. First, you're going to get scorched. Second, you're going to get overheated, and that's just a bad time to be out. You got to work on the shoulders of the sun intensity, and that's just common sense that you don't go out in the scorching heat of the day. I
Yeah.
mean, there's something within that. It's almost like anything we use, it can be used in an extreme level or an actual beneficial level. But I just find it's really interesting how everything reverses back to light. You need light to grow food, which brings me to the next thing. Many people said use it with no clothes on. Some people said use it with clothes on. I've used it both. And then somebody said, dude, what about your metal zippers or your metal buttons? Would that get interfered with? So far, I've had no problem with that, but I'd like to hear it from you. And that was
Yeah.
something that, because those zippers might overheat. It's almost like putting it in a microwave. And I'm like, what are you? I don't understand that. There might be some confusion about that. So
Oh,
maybe
yeah, exactly. Good. I think sometimes, people, because it's unknown to them, they're thinking about it in ways that it might be highly reactive in the sense that it could be dangerous or something like that. But it is the most gentle thing you could do, and you should think about it like sunlight. And in fact, if you go out and get burnt in the sun, guess what the number one thing to do is? Go home, get in front of your red light device, turn it on, and watch what it does to that sun damage. So it's going to reverse that. So it's more gentle than the sun, yet being more powerful. And that's just, you do the research and you'll see what I'm saying is true. So if you have a zipper, it's not going to do anything. And even if you had like titanium rods, or you have got some metal implants, or even breast implants, or something pacemaker, like these, they're not interfered with light, because just like with sunlight, you'll find it doesn't interfere, and but it's not overheating you, and that's why you could do light therapy every day, but you shouldn't do sauna every day. It's too much pressure for the body, and some people think they're doing something good by doing that, but they're pushing their body too hard and they're exhausting their body. Whereas light therapy, absolutely, it's so gentle that you ideally should do it every day if you have the time for it. So like once I can get this through people's minds, I realize like they're just walking past it, the bam, turn it on, have it near the bathroom, turn it on while your clothes are off, and do it imperfectly. Brush your teeth in front of it, whatever. I don't care. I just want you to have a few minutes every day.
I am going out of my way to try to do this. Now, you know me. Well, maybe some of you know me.
Mm.
I do like to read. I do like to read books. I got this one here, Think and Grow Rich, because my mind's on focusing on abundance, manifestation, success into my life every day. So, I'll sit there and read a couple pages out of this one here while I am in front of that. It's not like you don't have to like think of something to do. I mean, I just like to read in front of it or review my notes because I like to write on paper too. I'm one of those kind of people. I write on paper a lot, so I can review my notes while I'm standing in front. There's a timer on it, so I'm not going to go overtime.
We just have a commitment to our loved ones. And so if you want to think, and I put this out there, if you want to think of one of the best gifts you could give to anyone you really love and care about, and I want everyone to do this, think about somebody that you love and care about that you couldn't imagine life without them. And some of these people won't have the fortitude. They don't know what you know, so they're not going to go out and buy this. But if you get it for them as a gift, what will happen is they will thank you for life, because they will feel the difference and they will stay on it. If they don't use it, ask them to give it back so you can give it to somebody else. And then they'll want to use it then, and you'll be kind of like using a reverse psychology to help them actually use it. But you will change their life. And like, firstly, who you're thinking of, probably your parents if they're still around. If not, your brother, your sister, your child that's suffering. And remember, if you're in a community, I believe that every neighborhood should be opening up their homes to the neighbors that they trust, and hopefully that's everyone, and to come in and to use the light therapy. So I really encourage people, and it's one of the reasons why David and I are putting this in front of you, so that we're not just bragging and talking about the results that we're getting. We want you to achieve these results, and that's why you can go and get a device, and you can own a device and try it out. We have got a 60-day money back guarantee. We got a 3-year warranty. You can break things up on payment plans. You could do a 4-pay or over 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. You do the math on what it costs to go in and get red light therapy sessions between 80 and $200 per session. And within a month of treatment, you've paid, like, that's what you'd pay to have a device in your home. And then on top of that, it's cheaper than anything else you can do, because my family of 4 all use that one device, and I would be paying 10 times that amount for a single supplement, because I have to reorder it and I have to order that for everyone in the family. This lasts a long time. Well, it's a lifetime. If you look at a 50,000 rated lifespan hours, that is over, it's right around a century. Which sounds unrealistic, but if you understand the technology and you see the quality, which you've seen in your hands, then you're dealing with technology that doesn't die because of how robust, like non-flicker, high-quality light-emitting diodes are, in with proper cooling systems and iron cast framing and that type of thing. So these are some of the best investments to make.
Jonathan Otto, myredlight.com. Please use the code ADAPT2030. But I do appreciate your time. Hope you got something out of our video. Please leave comments below, as you always do. That's why I pinged a few of those questions about during the interview here. So I'm always reading those and interacting with comments. So I'm curious what you all think as well. And this thing here, remember, vibration and frequency is the key to our existence. And Jonathan, any last words to sign us out? I'm going to say bye for now, but take us out.
Oh yeah, awesome, man. Well, look, I just want to encourage everyone watching. I want to encourage you that's watching to know that whatever you're battling with, you can get on top of it. And there are other therapies. There's many different approaches, and there's some that really stand out. And this is one of those amazing examples, and one that's so unique, and it's tapping into so many different systems. And I've seen the most amount of breakthroughs in my career at this point now, having tapped into this side of things.